spontaneous episode that I'm calling Subtle Transitions. And happy Monday to you all. And I wanted to focus today on this topic that I hear so often, and I really wanted to take some time to address it. And that topic is the self confidence. And I've talked about it in so many different ways, but I really want to bring all of them together so that it makes sense to you and you can start seeing how you can apply it already as of now as you hear me talk about it. So, one of the things that I was talking to my clients recently about the self confidence was that made me even look at it in a different way than before. And that she was telling me her story of how she used to be self confident in the past, especially in her university years, but then later in the workforce, and recently also. When she was applying for a job and she didn't get it, even though she was very confident that she would. And then once she realized that she didn't, then she felt like she didn't really have the confidence in herself. And and this made me think how we often think of our self-confidence being like either we don't have it or we even misunderstand to think that if we're self-confident, we're not supposed to experience failures. We're not supposed to experience disappointments, right? We're not supposed to experience any of the turmoil that human kind always do, meaning that some of the times we do, some of the times we experience all the joy and all the emotions that we call positive, right? So we believe somehow that if we're self-confident, then we're not really supposed to experience this because we're supposed to be self-confident, right? So therefore we're supposed to get everything that we strive for. So I really want to dissect this myth to think that way because that will not serve us and that will in fact make us every time doubting that we don't really have confidence, because if we did we would be no problem not failing at anything, we wouldn't be disappointed, we wouldn't be frustrated. No, my dears. So let's get something clear. Self-confidence is a feeling, and I usually also think of it as self trust. I don't really see the difference, at least in my body, in my experience. Self confidence, self trust is a feeling that comes from you believing something to be true about yourself. And it does not mean that we don't then get to be disappointed, we don't get to be frustrated. It just means that if we really trust ourselves, if we really have this confidence in ourselves, then we know what to do, even if we get uh, frustrated, even if we get disappointed, even if we get all of those difficulties, even if things don't go the way we want to, we will still know what to do, or we will trust that we will find out the answer. This is what self confidence is. So, self confidence, again, is not something that we keep searching for or keep uh, trying to get it from somewhere else, from someone else. We have it from our own internal feeling, and that feeling comes from a thought that says something like, we can do something about it. We are fine, or we will be fine doing it. My way of always feeling self confidence, self trust is I will always figure it out in the end. I will be fine. Or I can do whatever I want and I will still figure things out. This is my way of creating that self confidence, self trust within me. Right. So that's why um, if you are someone who's saying that, well, I should have really gotten that job or I should have really gotten that promotion, but I didn't, that means that I don't have self confidence, or I'm lacking it. So before you even come to that judgment, come to that conclusion, be careful. Why are you coming to that conclusion? Why are you telling yourself that you lack self confidence and therefore not really pursuing all the other things. So, one of the reasons could be that you are really afraid of those disappointments again, you're afraid of those failures again. Then, therefore, if you just keep telling yourself that you don't have the confidence to go for, excuse me, my hair is a bit. If you keep telling yourself that you don't have the confidence to go for that dream, that desire, that promotion, then you don't even need to apply or you don't even need to go through it. No, but the self confidence is actually be willing to go through those things and say, yes, I will still be fine. I will still find my inner resources to do something about it, to go through it, even if I fail. That's self confidence, the way that I see it, the way that I have experienced it, right? So, the other thing that I have noticed that people tell me is that things like if we really try hard or if we really put all of our eggs in one basket, for instance, things tend not to work and therefore we must not have a self-confidence, right? If we did, then we would have made it work. But oftentimes in those situations, like this client was also telling me that she was telling me that she really thought that all of her problems that she was trying to solve would be solved with this job offer or with this job that if she got it, right? But think about it. The reason why things don't work, of course, there might be many factors, but one of them is when we are so attached to that. When we are so attached to that, so in this case, my client was very attached to that job and hoping that that job will solve all of her problems. And then, whenever we are in those situations where we don't see any other alternatives and we only see that as a solution, and if we don't get it, then we must not have done it right or we must not have self confidence or whatever it is, then it's likely that things don't work. Because in those moments when we're attaching ourselves to something, we're not really trusting ourselves. We're not really feeling that confidence. If we did, then would we really be attached to it? Right? We would probably not be attached to it, but we would still have certain mm, healthy boundary or healthy evaluation of even if we don't get it, we will always find other ways to get to what we want to. Now that is self-trust. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm trying to show you different ways how self-confidence may be misconstrued or misconceived, or we keep somehow coming to the conclusion that we lack self-confidence without really realizing what's the consequences of that verdict, what's the consequences of that conclusion is. So therefore, all I'm saying is that A, get clear on uh, get clear on what is self-confidence for you. How do you feel it? How do you feel it in your body? And what thoughts, what beliefs about yourself create that self-confidence? And also get clear as to self-confidence does not mean that we don't fail. Self-confidence does not mean that we don't get disappointed, but it just means that we know how to go through um, through disappointment and through frustrations. Self-confidence is supposed to be there to help us to go through them and then know that next time we will learn our lessons and do better than before, instead of I will not be trying this anymore because I don't have self confidence, because if I did, I would have succeeded. We don't need to have that type of conclusions because that's not true. Because whenever we're saying to ourselves that we can't really go through another such disappointment and failure, again, it really means that we're not trusting ourselves and our capacity to go through that. And if we are so attached to something, if we're so attached to a job, so attached to a work offer, so attached to promotion, uh, believing that that will like solve all of our problems that we otherwise are not solving, then it's likely in those moments when we're so attached, things don't work. And the reason why things don't work is in those moments, we just abdicated our responsibility to those things, to that job, to that um, job offer, to that promotion, believing that that will just solve all of our problems, even though we know that we are the one who can and will solve our problems. We need to again come back to relying on our self confidence, relying on our self trust to solve those problems, irrespective of whether we will get this job or not, irrespective of whether we will get this job offer, right? So that's why be careful as to what you're assuming about yourself. And even if you kept assuming, and even if you kept finding all the evidence for um, how that's true, how your lack of self confidence is true, and how you haven't been able to do maybe to set boundaries for yourself, how you haven't been able to communicate effectively with your colleagues to get what you're trying to say, how you haven't been able to do other things, other examples, even if you have like tons of examples of how you lack self confidence, ask yourself, now, what are you going to do? How are you going to feel that confidence as of now? How are you going to give yourself that self confidence as of now? What are the beliefs about yourself, or what are the opinions about yourself that you need to have in order to keep generating that self confidence to go through whatever the big or small leaps that you're going to take, right? So instead of just keeping to the verdict that you've decided, this is how it is, this is my life, and I don't have self confidence, instead of focusing on that, focus on how are you going to create that? How are you going to work on that? How are you going to build that muscle of that self confidence that if you haven't, um, if you haven't, excuse me, my hair is a bit of a mess today. If you haven't really felt it before, how can you feel it more? How can you feel it more and start acting from that place, um, to gather more and more evidence, together to create more and more evidence of how you actually do have self confidence, how you can trust yourself to go through this difficulty, however difficult it is, instead of just keep believing that this is true and you can't change about it. Because imagine what are the opportunities you would go for if you really believed um, you have the self confidence. Imagine what opportunities or what even opportunities would you create and then go through them. And even if you did fail, even if you did get disappointed, you would still know how to be okay with it or how to process that and go through it and then keep attempting to create more opportunities and go through that. And you would always know that self confidence is not arrogance, right? Self confidence is not egoism, because I think that's the other things that people confuse with. And I didn't really touch upon this, but I will just briefly mention is that self confidence is when you are giving yourself the trust needed to go through that challenge, to go through that um, action you're taking, while um, arrogance always wants to compare to other people and to make ourselves feel better at the expense of other people. That's not what we're talking about. And also, egoism is when we are wanting to take the advantage over anyone else because we believe we're better, and we're not talking about that either. So that's why let's, friends, get to practicing self confidence more. Let's not allow lack of self confidence be a reason for not transitioning. Let's not lack of self confidence be a reason for not achieving our dreams in 2023? Because if we are really using that as a reason to not go for what we want, it really sounds like we are either not really wanting our dreams, which I don't think is the case, or we're just deciding to stand in our own way, which does not make sense. Because we know that if we really trusted ourselves, if we really trusted our capacity, we could do a lot more, or we could even achieve a lot bigger heights, or whatever the heights we want to, or maybe actually um, having that self trust, self confidence would mean that we would finally stop being in the hamster wheel and just feel grounded and peaceful and loving what we do, and loving our lives. And if it's not possible to do where we are, then do it somewhere else where we can. That's also a self confidence. So I would love for you to give yourself this confidence, give yourself this trust, even if it's a brand new, fresh trust. Give this to yourself, practice it, start creating more actions, take more actions, create more opportunities from that confidence by feeling it, by experimenting it. And even if you go through the failures and disappointments, know that you will be fine. You will know how to process it. Allow your body to process it, and then go through it, and then keep trying. Okay, majors, have an amazing week, everyone, and I will talk to you very soon. Until then, stay safe.